Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to another Bingezone video. On today's video, we're going to talk about the Netflix original movie, Beats, because this movie really resonated with me because there's a lot to unpack here. Yo, not only is the main character black like me, kind of overweight, and he grew up in the hood, shit, we even have similar hairstyles even though he has more hair than me, but that's neither here nor there. I want to talk about the thing that this movie does very well, and that's bring to light a subject in minority black communities mainly that isn't brought to light by most mainstream movies or mainstream media, and that is the psychological effect that the gang violence and the poor socioeconomic standards of living that these people go through and the effect it has on their mental health, as well as certain individuals from those communities suffering from PTSD. Because I grew up in a neighborhood where there was gun violence all the time. I grew up in a neighborhood where police were called all the time and people were shot and killed. And the effects that it can have on people, I've seen it have on other people as well as myself, is very traumatizing, because when you think of PTSD, you usually think of war. But heck, this movie takes place in Chicago, and Chicago is also known as Chirac. It's a battleground. It's like a concrete warfare going on 24/7. And I'm glad this movie was made because those voices and those stories need to be heard. But enough of the preachy shit. Let's get into the movie exact. And I want to say that this movie's main characters, the two main characters, are prime examples of what can happen of two upstanding or not gang-related individuals who become byproducts of their environment, but not in the lifestyle of gangs, but as a, an effect, a result of their neighborhood. For example, if we look at the main character, August. August is a normal kid doing what normal kids do when the movie started, and after the death of his sister, he changes. He suffers PTSD, he shuts down, and he's able to stay home and get homeschooled by his mother. But not a lot of kids are afforded that opportunity, so they're thrust back in the world. And August thankfully had his mom to keep him at home, to raise him and allow him to nurture his gifts of beat making, which I want to get into hip hop and music later on in this video because that plays a significant role in this movie, as well as communities like August's, like mine, like a bunch of, heck, millions of people in the United States go through this and they cope with hip hop music as a voice and an outlet for all the things around them. But the fact that he had the ability to stay home and nurture his gifts is something not a lot of people are afforded. And I love the fact that the movie doesn't gloss over his PTSD. It's a gradual progression for the character as he goes on and he reemerges into the world by Romello. I like the fact that it's gradual, step by step. And even when he goes outside, even after he's been partying and all that, and he is reintroduced, he still suffers from that, because imagine being a teenager, having your sister shot in front of you, and then you're supposed to go back to school where there's metal detectors, your best friend carries a gun, and that's all you know. That's the only lifestyle that you have. That is something that I love what this movie did with that character of August. But I also want to talk about Romello. Romello is the byproduct of what can happen when you don't have great financial literacy, or you're a byproduct of the system, of the environment that he grew up in. Because remember, he talked about how his father moved into the projects in 1971, lived there his whole life, and died. And when he finally had himself his own way to go out and become the man that he is, he ended up falling back on his ass because he never wanted to go back there. And never wanting to go back to the hood is something I can attest to 100% firm. Once you make it out, you really don't want to go back, because it's hard to change that environment because it's so much ingrained and so much the lack of resources and the lack of education and funding, and even the school. A perfect example is in the movie. The principal of the school actually talks about how the lack of student attendance is cutting into their funding. But as we see Romello go out and try to get kids to come back to school, we find out a lot of kids, they're not going to school because of PTSD, or they're just dead. And that's a byproduct of the lack of resources being put into these communities. So therefore, when these kids are dead and they don't have, and the schools themselves don't have enough kids to fill the classrooms, the state and the government goes ahead and cuts the funding of the school, making it harder to keep kids in, putting them back on the street. It's like a never-ending cycle of feeding into each other, and it's hard to break when you don't have the proper resources. And we see Romello try to get the resources. He even screwed over some individuals, and he ended up right back where he started off. But this movie mainly focuses on his growth as a character, as well as August's growth as a character. And I like the fact that they actually need each other. When you have that support system, you can actually grow. And that's a message I feel like this movie is really trying to bring on, is the fact that you need the support system. When you lack the resources, the social economic opportunities to actually move forward, you can't step ahead and you can't go forward. So this movie, again, I really enjoyed those messages about the movie. I will say though, the pacing of this movie is one of the issues I had with, but that's more on the technical side of the filmmaking. The message was on point. The actual overarching plot was on point, and I actually enjoyed the characters. I like seeing August, his portrayal, and I like seeing that type of black kid being represented. Just like how Netflix also had the movie See You Later or See You Yesterday, or what was it, the time travel movie. You see that different aspect of two young black kids who are super geniuses essentially. Now you have August, who's another black kid who isn't the typical black kid you see represented. He's just a normal dude. Granted, he has a nice gift for music, but he's a normal kid and he's suffering a typical type of trauma that you would associate with his environment. And then I want to talk about the hip hop aspect of it all. This movie really is grounded upon the basis of hip hop, which is a music genre that a lot of people used to associate with gang violence, drugs, and every negative stereotype you can think of. But in this movie, it's an outlet for his genius. He's actually creating an art form, and that is what connects him and Romello together. The expression, hip hop was always about expression about your environment. If you saw rap songs about drugs, that's because that's what they grew up around. Gang violence, that's what they grew up about. But you need a certain way to actually express yourself. You need a way to express yourself, and that is his expression, and that is Romello's expression. And that's why a lot of kids gravitates towards, especially in the minority communities, gravitates toward hip hop, basketball, football. These are things, these are outlets that can help them escape their environments and get a better life. And it's overall a pretty good movie. Granted, like I said, the pacing was, but that's more of a technical aspect and not about the movie itself. The movie, I couldn't give higher praises. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And if you guys like the movie, let me know in the comment section below. What you think of the movie? Did you truly enjoy it? Was it or would you recommend it to somebody else? I'd love to hear your comments and feedback in the comment section below. And if you liked the video, definitely hit the thumbs up, hit the subscribe button if you have not already. And until next time, binge on.